Susan asked, what do Amish do if they can't find a suitable partner that's in their age group to date and marry? I'll answer that, but first I'm going to address something Netta said. She said that we would like to see some of your memorabilia, your Amish clothes, stuff like that. I wish I could. I don't have any of my Amish clothes anymore. My hat is in the attic of my parents' house. I had given it back to them. I'm sure they kept it, hoping I would someday come back to be an Amish. And I could ask for it, I guess. They know about the YouTube channel, and they know if I wanted it back, that's why I would want it back, and they're not supportive of what I'm doing on here. Anyway, as far as discussing theology, doctrines, whatever. So they would be okay with me discussing their lifestyle a little bit. They don't care about that. Yeah, so I wish I had Amish clothes. All I do have is maybe an Amish picture of me when I was a kid. I have some of the art I did in school, but that's just kind of like any other art that kids did in school. No different than non-Amish kids. I would love to give you a tour of the house that I grew up in, and the barn and everything. It's changed quite a bit since I was living there with my parents, but there's still a lot of stuff is still the same. The problem is my parents still live there, right? There's still people living there. I just don't. I'm not going to do it without permission. I'm not going to go in there and shoot a bunch of video without their permission. On the other hand, I don't know if I'm want to ask for permission. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll ask them someday. Maybe I'll get enough courage to ask them, because like I said, they know where this footage is going, and some of the stuff I do on here they would not agree with. I will do what I can, but it's tricky with Amish people, right? I would love to shoot tons of video of Amish people. I would love if my parents or my farming brother-in-law would let me put a camera in his face and just follow him around all day. Wouldn't that be epic? Or my sisters, cleaning house or whatever they do, but it's not a possibility. Let's answer that question. What do the youth do, the young folks do, who don't find a suitable partner to marry? Once again, I cannot speak to any other communities except for the one I grew up in, which is northern Indiana. It's a more lenient, less strict community. So what typically happens with normal Amish youth, they turn 16, and at 16 you are now eligible to date. You can date. Usually the guys wait a few years. Usually the girls might start dating immediately. And you'll usually go a couple years until you meet somebody that you fall in love with, and then you join the church, you agree to follow their rules for the rest of your life, and then you get married and you have kids. There is no age. There's no age limit or whatever. You don't have to be a certain age, at a certain age or a certain amount of years in Rumspringa that you have to come back and join the church. You can choose to do so whenever you want to. And there's two different directions that you can go when you turn 16. I explained this a little bit in my video on Rumspringa. I'll put cards up here for that. Basically, you can choose to stay dressed Amish, keep driving your horse and buggy, bicycle, kind of follow the Amish rules. We called those the Clinton Youth. I don't know what they're called nowadays, maybe still the same thing. They don't typically party. Then you have your wild youth, your car youth, who get non-Amish clothes, jeans, whatever. They drive in the latest fashions and get cars, and they party on the weekends. This, once again, just talking about my community in northern Indiana, the Shipshewana, Middlebury, Topeka, Indiana. I cannot speak for any other communities in other states or even in Indiana. Cannot speak for any other communities. Ohio, Holmes County, Ohio is similar. I think Lancaster, Pennsylvania might be kind of similar. I'm not sure. Anyway, so what happens is you would do this until you find somebody, join the church, get married. Then some people, when by the time they hit their mid 20s, upper 20s, you know, they're getting older, so they'll join the church anyway while they're single, and then they'll just be single and Amish. There are, in the car youth, the wild youth, there are people who they never really find a partner, they never join the church, so they just continue their lives on outside of the Amish community. They start finding other friends, kind of just drift away from the Amish life. A lot of times they'll end up getting married to somebody who's non-Amish or something, and they'll live their English life, right? But for these young folks, or these women, men and women who have joined the Amish church and are still single, life gets a little harder for them, I think, because now they're restricted on what they can do. They have to follow the Amish rules, and it's just harder. It's harder to get around. It's harder to meet new people. But typically, they'll still hang around the youth some, but as they get older, especially in their lower 30s to mid 30s to especially upper 30s, they'll stop hanging out with youth, and they'll start kind of hanging out amongst themselves. They'll find other people their age who are still single, and they'll just they'll start doing things together, like game nights or going out to eat, or traveling together or stuff like that. And typically a lot of times they'll meet other people from different communities in other states, and they'll start going back from state to state. A lot of times this happens in Florida, where all the Amish converge in Pinecraft for the winter Christmas vacation. Usually some of them will eventually find somebody and get married, sometimes somebody from out of state, sometimes it's somebody they've known for 15 years already, and for some reason they just all of a sudden all of a sudden they click. 10, 15 years after meeting them, they click, they date, and they get married. It's an odd one. I don't know why they wouldn't have just done it 10 years ago, right? I don't know how that works. Maybe, I don't know, timing, right? There are some who never get married. I cannot think of any guys who stayed single for the rest of their life. I did know some older women who never got married. There's some in our church. There was some in the neighboring churches. They were considered old maids. They just lived out their lives. I feel for them. I can't. My heart goes out to them, because I'm guessing it was a lonely, long life, and it took a lot of patience and prayer. And yeah, I hope. Yeah, I feel for them. I feel bad for them. I wish they could have found somebody. And then there are those who join the Amish church, are single for 3, 4, 5 years. They get tired of it and they leave. They leave the Amish. They jump the fence, as it is called. Probably because it is a hard life. It's probably lonely and seems just kind of monotonous. So they leave, and a lot of times, shortly after leaving, they find a partner. Now, Amish people would discourage this. They would say they should have stayed Amish. They made a promise to God. They should have stayed Amish, even if it meant staying single for the rest of their life. The reason Amish people say that is because they believe God planted us in the Amish community, and that's where we need to remain for the rest of our life. That was His plan. We are going against His plan if we leave. God plants people maybe in certain areas, but He has other plans for them at times. That's another subject for another video. Then there are the ones who will find a partner through a death. So there's been a couple times I remember that a woman, she lost her husband to a bike accident or something like that, and then she ends up marrying a single Amish guy who's her age or older, and then he will take on that role as a family. Amish do not divorce. It is they are completely against divorce. I know of 2 cases where there are divorces where the men stayed Amish. The women had to leave and divorce. and the men refuse to get married again since they are divorced. That is the rules. You can't get married again once you're divorced. That too, I do not agree with, but that is for another video if I ever try to attempt to touch that subject. So that is basically what happens. Most of them do end up eventually finding somebody. There are a few who never do. They live Amish for the rest of their lives, or they leave and live life outside of the Amish community. I'm CJ. This is the Amish Potato. I hope that answered your question.